Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight to ANC 34G special meeting. We will go on and get started. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. We do have two commissioners that are going to join us later. Commissioner Zeldin, as most folks know, is taking care of a lot of family issues, but I believe he will be able to join between 6:30 and 6:45. And Commissioner Ferguson will be able to join us shortly as well. He is celebrating his daughter's 5th birthday. So we will ping him when we get close to the discussion in terms of the Civic Core vote. He's going to join us for that. So with that, my name is Lisa Gore, and we're going to start with commissioner introductions. I am ANC 34G chair, also commissioner for single member district 34G01, which is all of Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Woods. And I'm gonna call commissioners on my screen view from left to right, starting with Commissioner Gosselin.
Hi, I'm Peter Gosselin. I represent District 6, which is largely the west side of Connecticut back to Friendship Heights and a peninsula to the east to Nevada Avenue. Welcome.
And Commissioner Nash.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Nash, the Commissioner for Single Member District 03, which is the most southwestern district in our ANC.
And Commissioner Sherman.
Good evening, everyone. Bruce Sherman, Commissioner for Single Member District 02, which is the easternmost, along with Lisa's, district over by Rock Creek Park, north of Military, south of Tennyson, and east of Utah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I meant to say southeastern for me.
I was going, wait a second. What's Ferguson district?
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Lynch.
Hey, everybody. I'm Peter Lynch. I'm the commissioner for SMD 05. Welcome to the meeting.
Okay, with that, in terms of meeting procedures, they're pretty standard from meeting to meeting. This is a virtual only meeting, so I'd ask folks to make sure your microphones stay muted until you are recognized to speak. If you want to speak on a topic, I ask that you use the raise your hand function, which is underneath reactions, the bottom middle of the screen. And just always mindful for everyone to keep our conversations as civil and respectful as possible. We do have right now, including commissioners, 45 people joining. There's still a lot of folks joining as we speak. So we should have a full meeting tonight. Commissioners, with that, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to suggest an amendment to the agenda to include consideration of a draft resolution on the WMATA budget situation and the potential cuts to bus lines that serve our ANC.
Okay. Any other amendments?
I don't know if I need an amendment. I wanted to give commissioners a very brief update and report on the first pre-formation meeting of the Transportation Committee.
Okay.
I can do that during commissioner announcements, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Commissioner Gosselin.
I just wanted to alert commissioners. You'll see on the agenda a discussion of the CVS parking lot. I don't think we're going to take the lawyer for the owners of the parking lot will be on tonight. I want to raise some general issues. I think we'll take up the vote on the BZA application for special exception at our next meeting. But I think there's some broader issues here that we need to discuss.
Okay.
So no meeting, but just an alert of what's under that heading.
Okay. So I move that we move the agenda as amended by Commissioners Sherman, Nash, and Gosselin. You really didn't have an amendment. Commissioners Sherman and Nash. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, commissioners, raise your hand. Okay. 5-0. That motion passes. Okay, we started out tonight with the discussion and possible vote on the Civic Core RFP resolution from Commissioner Sherman. Commissioner Sherman, I'll let you go ahead and get started on this.
Thank you, and welcome again, everybody, to the meeting tonight and the conversation we're about to have. The proposed resolution is really to do one simple thing, which is to reiterate what the ANC already said in the December 11th resolution, which is regarding the maximum building height at the community center and library site of 60 feet. We included that in the resolution of December 11th. That resolution went to DMPED. We have all now seen the RFP. The RFP does not include that. The RFP includes the proposed zoning amendment by the Office of Planning of 80 feet at the community center library site. So what the prospective bidders are working with right now is an 80-foot restriction, not 60. The RFP also refers to the community, meaning the Chevy Chase community, all of us, on a number of occasions, but only in reference to DMPED's own survey and public outreach. The webpage that DMPED maintains for the Civic Core project mentions nothing about our survey. The RFP itself has a one-sentence reference to our survey, so that if you are a prospective bidder, you're going to have to dig. You're going to have to search pretty hard to find the expressed views of our community, 2,300 nearly ANC members, on a host of issues, including the building height. So my resolution asks that we restate this one important element. I'm mindful that there are potentially many other things that we could say need to be restated, and we can have that conversation. I think building height is a proxy for what a lot of people in the community have, which is a concern about overbuilding, about too tall buildings, about overdevelopment at the community center library site. I would point out, as I have on a number of occasions, that community concerns about building height are not new. The 2019 ANC survey showed that only 7 to 9% of survey respondents favored buildings that were 6+ stories in height. So if we hark back 4 years, nearly 5 years, we see already an indication by the community about buildings that are too tall. The survey last fall that we fielded, again, among ANC respondents, 2,300 of them, 70% were opposed to buildings over 60 feet, 70%. I would note that that majority view varies slightly by single member district, but in every one of our single member districts, a majority, significant majority of residents said that they were opposed to buildings over 60 feet. Mostly, a majority were opposed to buildings over 50 feet. And about a third, thereabouts, were opposed to buildings over 40 feet. So the community has made it very clear where they stand, I believe, on this issue. And as I have said, I think it behooves us to restate this to DMPED, to have them incorporated in by way of an amendment to the RFP. Let me just say what I've noted before too, but not everyone has heard it on this call tonight, which is that I believe it's only fair, by way of disclosure to the bidders, to include this, because as they're preparing their proposals right now, if they don't take it into account, come time to present their plans to the community, they might be shocked, might be too strong a word, they might be dismayed, they might be surprised by the reaction of the community if they're proposing buildings that the community has already indicated they would find too tall. So it's important for us to be clear with DMPED in turn to be clear with prospective bidders as to where the community stands. So again, it's really just to reiterate what we've already said, not to break any new ground, but it's not reflected in what DMPED has issued in the RFP. It's very difficult to find any reference to it. So I believe it's important for us to restate it. Let me just say this too, that I have taken note of some of the listserv posts and some of the letters, the notes, emails that have come into the commission. I see sort of 4 areas of expressed concern opposing my resolution. They break down as follows, that the resolution and the restatement of the 60-foot height restriction would be unnecessary. The 60-foot height restriction is arbitrary. The 60-foot height restriction comes from the survey, which had fundamental flaws in some people's minds, and that doing so would interfere with DMPED's process. I can take each of those in turn, but I just want to flag those. I'm mindful of those already. We can hear from the community. So I'm happy to take any questions, obviously, any comments. Again, it's pretty straightforward. We said it. We need to say it again for the benefit of the bidders, in faith with our community, and we need to hold DMPED accountable. So that's it. Happy to take questions, comments.
Why don't we, I don't know where Lisa just went. Why don't we just get this on the floor? So you're moving, okay, there's Lisa.
Yeah, I'm here. So first thing that we have to do is move the resolution. So Bruce, you want to
I propose that we move the resolution for consideration for adoption by the commission.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, so now we're in discussion.
Thank you.
Do you want to go with community first or commissioners?
Well, I don't know if a commissioner, I didn't know, Peter, if you were raising your hand, and Peter Gosselin already. If you go ahead, if you'd like, and then to Cheryl.
Well, I'll wait and listen to the discussion. I also want to hear whether they're a friendly amendment.
Okay, let's go with community first. Cheryl?
Hi, good evening. It would be great if we could actually at home see the speaker when he's talking. We can't. It's just
Why?
at the very least, we can't see Bruce when he's talking.
I'm on my video, Cheryl. I'm not quite sure why you can't see me.
Yeah, I can see.
Well, right now, I can see Peter, and previously while you were talking, Lisa's picture was up. So anyways, I'm just saying it would be nice to be able to see the speaker when we're doing a virtual meeting.
Some people are saying that they can see the speaker, so it might be the way your settings are set. But I think most people can see the speaker.
Okay. On behalf
make
of,
sure you're muted. I'm sorry, Cheryl, hang on. Make sure you're muted, everyone. There's a lot of feedback coming in.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Cheryl.
okay, on behalf of the 1,350 plus members of Chevy Chase Voice, I can say very clearly that this ANC should support Commissioner Sherman's resolution. There are a number of things that the community voiced their opinions about with the survey and publicly in the meetings that did not make it into the RFP. This, at the very least, that you all previously agreed upon should be supported now as then. And, you know, I think his statement lays out the points perfectly. And also, it is in line with the wishes of the constituents who elected you all. And we've seen more resolutions from this ANC that favor pro-developers over the wishes of the community than we can shake a stick at. And I would hate to see this as a continuation of that practice. This issue has nothing to do with building affordable housing. So I think that that is just, as usual, the red herring that's thrown into the pool of discussion about it. It has nothing to do with building affordable housing. And I think most people in the community now understand that very clearly. Nowhere else in Washington, D.C. has the upzoning and increased density done anything except cause displacement of low to moderate income residents by displacement of when naturally occurring affordable housing is raised and the gentrification of neighborhoods that the upzoning and density brings along with it. And if you want examples of that, you can look anywhere in Washington, D.C., Noma, Eckington, Hill East. We have example after example of neighborhood where naturally occurring affordable housing has been raised and where a handful of IZ units have taken the place. And the gentrification along with that. So nobody really believes this red herring anymore, this ruse. During the oversight hearings last month, two important things should influence your vote. Matt Fruman told the Office of Tenancy hearing audience that the old apartments on Connecticut Avenue have outlived their usefulness. If the buildings along Connecticut Avenue from Calvert Street to Chevy Chase Circle are gutted and rehabilitated into Class A market rate units, there will be thousands of residents displaced. Affordable housing on this corridor will be lost for good. And in its place, there will be a handful of IZ units. Those displaced residents don't earn 80% AMI, so they won't be able to afford to live in those IZ units. The second thing that I noticed during the oversight is that Meg McGuire of Northwest Opportunity Alliance testified before I did.
3 minutes.
One last point, thanks, about how the Office of Planning missed adding promised affordable housing for families in Wisconsin Avenue development and will only require the typical IZ studios and 1-bedrooms. Does anyone here really think that this is about a desire on the city's part for workforce housing? It's only about increasing Ward 3 tax base with Class A market rate housing developments. The least you could do is support Bruce's resolution, agreeing to what you already agreed to previously.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Thanks, Cheryl. Corinthia, you're next.
Hi, good evening. So
Good
my question is just in regards to the height. I guess I'm just curious as to why you think it'll be overdevelopment if it's 80 or 80 foot when, you know, we have 2 blocks of Connecticut that is already that height. So I guess I'm just confused in understanding the disagreement to something that's already in the neighborhood.
Right. So what I'm referring to and basing the resolution on is the expressed sentiment of ANC 34G residents on the survey. The survey in 2023, the survey in 2019. So when the residents were asked in the survey this time, what was the maximum building height they would find acceptable at the community center and library site, they were given a variety of responses, up to 40 feet, 50 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet, 80 feet, or no preference. And as I indicated, 70% of the respondents in the ANC indicated that they opposed a building heights above 60 feet. So that's, Corinthia, where it's coming from. It's the express view of residents on the survey regarding building height.
Okay, thank you. I'll just also like to note that the survey isn't indicative of everyone in the community. It's only a short portion. And I think we should not dismiss something that we already have in the community. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher. You're muted, Christopher.
Sorry, thought I had unmuted, but I missed it. Thank you. The Commission's December 11th resolution talked about a lot of things that the community felt were important in this project. And I think, unfortunately, this resolution sends the message that there's really only one thing that we really, really care about, and that's limiting the height of the building. And I think that does a disservice to all of the other important things that the community wants that the December 11th resolution addressed. I also think this resolution is utterly pointless. We're now less than 2 months away from a zoning commission hearing in which the ANC actually has a clear statutory role, and we ought to be focused on that rather than on trying to get DMPED to put something into the RFP that they're not going to put there. I think there's zero chance that DMPED will amend the RFP in a way that pulls the rug out from under its sister agency, the Office of Planning, who has as you know, has a proposal pending for allowing up to 65 feet plus a 15-foot penthouse. I also think if you look at the RFP, it's clear that DMPED doesn't want to be at all prescriptive. It wants to allow designers flexibility to maybe, put it taller in one place and put more mass in another place. So they've laid out sort of the applicable rules. The zoning, the statutory affordable housing requirements, the general library and rec center design requirements, and then they want to leave flexibility to the designers to come up with a variety of ideas and present them to the community and let us see what they look like. So for that reason, they're not going to prescribe a maximum height different from what the zoning would allow. So the commission ought to be focused on preparing its report and testimony for the zoning commission hearing, which is now, you only have now, I think, 4 regular ANC meetings between now and when that hearing is going to be happening, and you're wasting everybody's time on this resolution. We will have, the community and the ANC will have a chance to provide input and reactions on all the designs submitted by various designers. We'll get to see what things look like. If something's too tall, we can say it then. If something has too much mass near the houses behind the site, we can say it then. But that brings me to another problem with the resolution, which is that it expresses two desires that are in conflict with each other. It both wants to put a height limit on and wants to encourage people to put as much mass towards Connecticut Avenue as possible. And you have to recognize, if you limit the height, you limit the ability to move mass towards Connecticut Avenue. So it's a formula for a blocky building that takes up as much height on the whole of the site as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Christopher. Just a couple of quick thoughts in response. The current resolution picks up the language from the prior resolution with respect to preference for proposals that concentrate height along Connecticut Avenue side of the development. So that's something that we could amend here if we chose to do that. I would say in general, with regard to what DMPED might accept, what they might not accept, it's difficult for us to know that. Our statutory responsibility is to advise the DC government with respect to policies and programs based on the views of our community. And that's what we have to do. What the district agencies do with that information is up to them. But we're to advise them based on the community input that we receive. So just a couple of quick thoughts in that regard. Let's go in sequence, but thank you, Christopher. Let's go in sequence, Michelle and then Claudia.
Hi. Just a couple things I want to say about this. The first is, most people in this, tonight we have what, 55 people at this meeting. Most people in this community are not part of any advocacy group. They are not constantly paying attention to what the ANC does. They are not peppering you with emails all the time. They are not attending meetings. They are busy. They are leading their lives. They don't want to be enmeshed in constantly fighting over these things. And most of them are not aware really of what's going on. So they're not going to be communicating with you all that much like the advocacy groups are. And the advocacy groups have been involved in this from the very beginning, pushing what they wanted, which was a lot of development at this site and all along Connecticut. And unfortunately, they were often the only voice in the room at the very beginning of this process, going back to 2020, 2019, whatever. But we had an earlier survey in 2019, which showed that people did not want a tall building on this site. And then we came to our most recent survey. 2,300 people in this ANC responded to that survey. You have never had as much input in a decision from the community as you had with this. And my point is, they're not going to be peppering you with emails all the time. They're not going to be coming to every meeting. But what they can do is do a survey. And they did that in good faith, thinking that the ANC might actually pay attention to it. So 60% of the ANC respondents actually said they didn't want housing on this site. And unfortunately, the ANC is ignoring that. But 70% said they didn't want buildings over 60 feet on this site. So what this resolution does is simply make sure that the city in the RFP makes that known. Because at every step in the way on this, what the community wants, it keeps getting lost over and over again. And at the very least, as a compromise, if there's going to be housing here, which again, survey shows a substantial number of people actually didn't want on this site, and not for nefarious reasons, I'll add, just because this isn't a good site, then at least let's bring down the height. And let me add, the reason I'm not aware of any 80-foot buildings anywhere near the community center. They are much further down Connecticut. But secondly, the reason not to have them here is that, again, this is not just a building we can put on top of. This is our outdoor recreation space. This is where we have a summer camp for kids in the summer. There's a preschool, cooperative play group that's out there in the mornings. They were out there this morning. And it's our community public space. We deserve better than to have an 80-foot tall building looming over everything. People want the green space. They want trees. They want light. Putting an 80-foot building there is inconsistent with all of that. So please pass the resolution, listen to the community.
Thanks, Michelle. Claudia, and raise your hand if you wish, or I can see you. Leonard, I'll come to you after Claudia. Otherwise, if you can use the raised hand function on Zoom, that's helpful.
I'd like to ask everyone what they thought of the sunlight today. It was pretty glorious. And part of what we're talking about is qualitative aspects of the design. And having a large building, you will always be in shadow or almost rarely get direct sunlight. Your playground will not have plants that thrive. What we're talking about is a public space, as Michelle said, that we want to occupy, that we want to be a part of. And it will not be inviting. It will be dense. It will be dark. And I think it's very important not to put parameters that already kill qualitative aspects of what we want in a public space and what we enjoy in a public space. And by making the height and the density that what it is, we will shadow ourselves into an unpleasant, at best, space. And I think that having the reduced height, and if you go downtown and you look at conditions where the height is less versus others, you'll see that the street gets more light, that the building gets more light, that the building is more defined. It's not just a street wall. And I think it's just important that we don't lose with these numbers what we're actually getting and what we can feel as a community to embrace and belong. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Leonard.
So let me begin by saying I was a little late because I went to the meeting in person, which isn't there. There's a basketball game going on there, though. I think I want to take issue with the notion that we're wasting our time in doing this. I don't expect to change the mind of the Department of Zoning. I don't expect to change the mind of the planning people. But I do have a right to politically protest what's going on about this height. And I think reiterating what the ANC has already agreed to put in as language doesn't do us any harm at all.
Great, Leonard. Thank you.
Okay,
we have-
Commissioner Sherman, we're going to have to let this be the last question. We are moving on at 6:45, and I want ANC members time to speak. So let's let Andrea McCabe be the last comment.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to the 60% statistic that was brought up again, and which was pointed out in meeting after meeting as being invalid. There were 47% of the respondents opposed to housing, 40% for, and the rest of the people had different responses. Some people didn't want any construction noise. No construction, I don't want noise. No construction, parking will be difficult. And there were responses where people said there should never have been development on that block from Livingston to Morrison. People would not want the fishery there, which you just gave a citation to for their community service of 30 years. The Blue 44, which supports neighborhood charities. I'd also like to go back to what was just said about the basketball game being there. People repeatedly talk about the recreation activities, but only 40% of the respondents said we should have the basketball court continued there, whereas 80% of the responses said the outdoor recreation should be benches. So again, we've thrown the young families under the bus. We've thrown the youth of the community under the bus. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, just one thing, Commissioner Gore, I want to be very clear about. I have the statistics from the survey in front of me, and I don't want to leave any misimpressions about the results of the survey. When we have cited the figure of 60%, that is in reference to residents in this ANC. There were nearly 2,800 people who took the survey. 2,300 of those, 2,297, were from this ANC.
Yeah.
And
I think if you want to cite the statistics, let me just say this, cite the statistics, because 60% is a figure that has been lumped out there. And I think there are multiple categories grouped in to people that don't want housing. So if we're going to cite that, just cite the statistics.
Let me be very clear.
Yeah.
I have the statistics. I have the survey results, which we've published amply right in front of me. In the survey, again, looking at ANC respondents, 50% indicated that they only supported redevelopment of the community center and library. Only. That's without housing.
Right.
10%, so the total here is 60, said they did not support any development of the site, which would, of course, include housing. That gets to the figure of 60%. And I understand.
What's the figure? What's the figure for no opinion? Didn't have enough information.
So the figure for I did not feel sufficiently informed to have review is 3%.
Okay, so let's just make sure we include everybody and not lump all things into one, because I think that's what we're doing. But at any rate, I appreciate
Commissioner Gore, can I just be clear about this, because I have to.
Yeah, but let me say this, Bruce, we are running out of time. I'm trying to keep the meeting on track with commissioner comments. I don't think redebating the statistics on who voted for what is going to do us any good with passing this resolution. The discussion is on the resolution, and commissioners need to weigh in. So I want to go to that. And I want to start, commissioners, raise your hand and let's start weighing in on the resolution. Let me actually, can you lower your hand, commissioners? Let me move Zach Ferguson. Thank you. I'm trying to get him to where I can see.
Zach keeps logging in and falling out.
Okay, well, he's here now. Okay, commissioners, raise your hand and let's have your comments. Okay, I'm just going in order. Commissioner Nash, then Commissioner Lynch.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to oppose this resolution because the first mistake that I heard when Commissioner Sherman introduced it was he made a very common mistake he's made before of confusing and confounding the community with the survey. The vast majority of people here did not take the survey. Okay. So to say that the community wants X, Y, or Z because of the survey is wrong. I also disagree with the way he interprets the survey because it's quite possible to be opposed to development, but if development is going to occur, you want housing on there. Okay, so that's a second fundamental disagreement I have. Third, we are way behind in this area on building affordable housing. We're the worst region in the city, according to the mayor's plans. We're only about 4 or 5% of her goals, which are for next year. So and I know people who are dying on the street right now. So we need to get, in my view, as much affordable housing as we can everywhere, including here and not limited to just here. The 60-foot limit is not going to further that goal. And then finally, even if you're going to talk about the survey, a plurality of people in my single member district want housing. And the biggest thing I saw in reading their written comments was they wanted to preserve green space. Height didn't come up in the written comments. So the two goals of housing and preserving green space, to me, trump any arbitrary restriction on height. That's it for me.
Commissioner Lynch?
Yeah, I emailed all the commissioners these friendly amendments, and they also, in the spirit of keeping with what we've already passed, all align with resolutions we've already passed. So I would ask for a point to be made that outdoor space and usage be maintained, that the heritage trees at the corner of the site are maintained. There's language in the RFP that suggests a lot of flexibility with uprooting them and moving them. That hotel use be stricken from the RFP. There's a lot of talk of hotels in the RFP, which has never been spoke of before in any of these processes. And that retail use be struck from the RFP. And then also, I would ask that previous ANC resolutions be synthesized and placed within the RFP as opposed to what they're currently now doing, which is just linking to the ANC website for developers to search out. So those are basically the four friendly amendments that I would offer to you, Commissioner Sherman.
Thank you. Commissioner Gauss.
Commissioner Sherman, first, I think you need to respond to the friendly amendments request.
I think I just did, no? I indicated I would.
Accepting them?
I can accept those friendly amendments. There might be conversation that others have about those. So why don't we proceed with the conversation? Commissioner Gosselin, I think, had some issues he wanted to raise. Why don't we go to Commissioner Gosselin and hear his views?
Let me say I am prepared to support the resolution as Bruce has written. If we want to add no hotels, that's fine. We, looking for a compromise on December 11th, we included the 60-foot limit. I don't think that DMPED has properly responded in any formal way to our December 11th resolution. And as Bruce has pointed out, it's barely mentioned in the RFP it was supposed to influence. So I think restating where we were on the height issue, which I agree with Bruce, is kind of the cotter pin issue, is perfectly legitimate. I agree with Chris that, you know, we ought to also focus on what gets decided on April 29th when the zoning commission takes up the change in zoning for both the community center library site and more generally the upper Connecticut Avenue commercial corridor. But that doesn't mean that we can't restate what we've already agreed to. So I'm fine with supporting the resolution as written. I'm happy to, if you want to add the hotel thing, I assumed that was boilerplate in the RFP, but I have problems going beyond beyond that. supporting this resolution.
Just to be clear, Commissioner Gosselin, Commissioner Lynch had also mentioned heritage trees and green space. If we were to reiterate, as he is indicating, our support for maintaining and not disturbing the heritage trees, would that be a problem?
My problem is that the way Peter described his proposal in the email exchanges we've had over the past several weeks is that there would be no disturbing of trees, no moving of trees, no anywhere on the site. And if you want to,
That's not what I said. I said the heritage trees.
is the tree in the center of the site a heritage tree?
The heritage trees are the ones at the corner of the northwest corner.
Let me just say, I'm sure Michelle Wolin, if she were brought back on, would talk with great passion about the tree at the very center of the site. And it is not that it is not a beautiful tree. It is, but one of the things that's going to have to happen if we're going to find a compromise on this issue is that site has to be changed. There are techniques, as we know from the Murray Field experience, that, for moving and saving heritage trees and at the same time allowing change on a site that needs to be changed. One of the reasons it needs to be changed is because much of it sits on a ground pedestal. And if we lowered the pedestal, we'd be able to have buildings that are not that much higher than the ones that now exist, but they come down to the street, which the current buildings do not. So I'm reluctant to support look, I'd be happy as a compromise, Commissioner Lynch, to support some language that says protect the trees on the northeast corner of the property, but
Few minutes.
the trees, no other trees. And I continue to be mystified by the no retail position. I think a coffee shop on the site would be fine. So anyways, that's Commissioner Sherman. That's as far as I'm willing to go in terms of compromising on the friendly amendments, but I do support your resolution as written.
Okay, thank you. So if we were to say, Commissioner Lynch, if we were to say heritage trees, which I believe the district has already indicated, and of course, heritage trees do have to be safeguarded. As a matter of DC policy, urban forestry regulations are in place for that already. If we were to cite heritage trees and eliminate hotel, does the retail concern you if it's a coffee shop or you're trying to prevent some other kind of retail?
So I think this was worth a bit of explanation. We got an email from the head of the fencing group the other day, really expressing concern that there wouldn't be space for his program. And so you have fencing, you have ballet, you have 20 other programs at the community center, you've got the 2 floors of the library. The language in the RFP suggests that there would be more than just a snack bar or a coffee shop. I'm okay with a sort of snack bar, coffee shop sort of thing. If it's run by high school students, if it's run by seniors, if it's run by returning citizens, that sort of thing on a nonprofit basis. But I think any full-on for-profit retail is taking the space away from housing. It's taking the space away from community center space. It's taking space away from library space. And I don't think we talked about that at the small area plan. We didn't talk about it after the small area plan. It's never come up. It's an idea from DMPED. It's not an idea that generated from our community or from the ANC. And I think we should still push back against it.
Okay, so if we were to amend the current language to reflect what you've just noted, that a coffee shop would be permissible, I would say in terms of limiting it to nonprofit operators might be a little much. Who knows who would go in there on that basis, how it would be financed. But in any event, if we were to say that we want to limit the retail so as to preserve space for the community-oriented functions, would that be acceptable?
Yes, I think as long as it's not taking away from the things that the community expects at that site, then I'm all for whatever might come. But if it begins to edge away other things, I don't think it's okay.
Okay.
Can I just suggest, Commissioner Sherman, that you might have, I'm looking at my colleagues, and you might have 3 votes here. So let's not, I mean, you're gonna need my vote. And I'm telling you, I'm willing to limit it to the heritage trees in the northwest corner and at the northwest corner and the 60, reiterating what we said in the December 11th resolution. I will vote for that. We also said in the December resolution that we had language that had limited retail use, and I think that's adequate as is. And so I'd suggest that you take what your wins such as they are, as you have,
Right, I understand.
and go with it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I hear you. Commissioner Lynch, are you okay with that? Just so we can move this along.
Taking the language of limited
retail use, the heritage trees protection. Yeah, okay.
Well, what is limited retail use?
It's the language that's in our December 11th resolution. That's what I think we ought to stick with regard to retail use. Again, Bruce, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I've got it. I hear you right there. So any other comments?
Yeah, I had my hand raised.
Yeah, please.
So I'm not in favor of the resolution. I'll be voting no. And it's nothing other than what's happening here tonight. We continue to send up resolutions, wonder why nobody's taking our resolutions seriously, and we're continuing to stack additional information into these resolutions. The RFP is out. I disagree that bidders are going to have to dig to look to find. I know bidders are out there, and that's what they're doing. If you're bidding on an RFP, you are going to look at what the ANC and what the community suggestions are. And I know that there are bidders out there that are going to look and they're going to dig into the site. Some have, I think one has contacted at least 1 or 2 people on the ANC. So that's already taken place. I am not comfortable with sending up a resolution amending a legal process, the RFP, as it stands. There's a process for DMPED that they have in place to amend RFPs, and this is not it. So this process just makes me very uncomfortable. Working with RFPs in the past, supervising contracting processes, this makes me very uncomfortable. I understand that it's the community's, and I think, Bruce, one of the things you said is restating the preference, but you're really doing more than that. You're restating the preference in addition to attempting to influence the amendment of the RFP. If that wasn't in there, I might feel very different about this resolution, but you've tackled them together, and that makes me very uncomfortable. In addition to that, I don't believe, and you can put an RFP together, a resolution together, and you could say whatever you want to say. But if your goal is to have the agency take your comments seriously, I think that's a whole separate thing. And I agree with Chris Vaden when he talked about DMPED changing the height. The reason why the 80-degree height is in there is simply because that's what it is right now in zoning. If the zoning commission hearing was held tomorrow and they changed that height to 60, DMPED would have to amend that RFP. I already talked to them about it. So it's not that we wouldn't know what they would say. We know what they would say, and we know that what they would do. They would have to go in and they would have to amend the height to match what is in zoning currently. So I think that's, something that needs to be said. I 100% support the community and support the ANC in the December 11th resolution. Going with that 60-degree or 60-foot height was definitely a compromise for me and my stance on affordable housing. Anytime you tinker with height, you're going to tinker with the number of affordable units. That's just the way it is. But I was willing to support the community's sentiment and what they wanted to see in that space in terms of height. I think that's really important. I don't believe we have to railroad everything down. And I do believe that we do have to support community and some of its desires. But I don't think that sending up a resolution with all these things that we're trying to tinker in there and say amend the RFP is the right thing for the ANC to do. I just disagree with that fundamentally. So I will be voting no. I thank the commission for working through the issue again. The vote will be what it is. I will ask that we follow the tradition to make sure on the final resolution, we put the yays and nays of the commissioners, because I want to make sure I'm reflected properly. And, thank you for the community comments. So,
Do we have any more commissioners? Did Commissioner Ferguson manage to get into the conversation?
he had to drop off. They are cutting cake and doing presents. So I'm gonna call for the vote.
Okay. Do we want to hear any further community comments? There are
I
hands.
called for the vote.
Okay.
Based on time. So commissioners, Sherman, do you want to read the resolution with the friendly amendments that you've accepted?
Well, I don't know that I have to read the entire resolution, right? I
Not the
think-
resolution, the motion, so that commissioners are clear on what they're voting on.
Right, okay. Well, then the motion would be that the commission requests that DMPED amend the Chevy Chase Community Center and Library site RFP to create the restriction that no new building at the site be over 60 feet in total, including any mechanical or penthouse structures, with a preference for proposals that concentrate height along the Connecticut Avenue side of the site to respect the scale of adjacent single-family homes. And it would also incorporate as the friendly amendments as proposed regarding reiterating the protection of heritage trees, limited retail, no hotel use, and respect for green space, with the notion of incorporating prior ANC resolutions synthesized inside the RFP.
Commissioner, point of order. Commissioner Sherman, I'm prepared to support a resolution that talks about protecting the heritage trees on the northwest corner.
Right.
There are other trees that may well count as heritage, but I think they probably have to be moved to make the site work. So I will not support it if the tree issue is not limited to the northwest corner.
Okay, so heritage trees in the northwest corner, again, recognizing that heritage trees, qua heritage trees, are protected in the District of Columbia and would have to be moved. Something would have to be done with them.
A good reason to just do the resolution as you originally voted.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not sure what synthesized resolutions. I mean,
That's not in.
he did.
Okay.
He wrote that.
I mentioned it, so well, let's strike it, make it clean and simple. The resolution regarding the 60-foot height restriction, plus the protection of heritage trees.
On the northwest corner.
Northwest corner, fine. And then the limited retail as we've discussed, and no hotel.
Fine.
Right? Are we clear about that? Commissioner Lynch, are you okay? All right.
All
So,
those in favor of the resolution, raise your hand. 3, all those opposed? 2, no abstentions. Motion carries 3-2-0. Okay, thank you, commissioners. We'll move on. Commissioner Gosselin, me and you on discussion of upcoming performance oversight testimony.
Yeah, there is the ability to, we have missed all of these hearings. There is the ability to still to file commission approved testimony for the 3 agencies that are listed in the agenda, Business and Economic Development, DMPED, DCPS, and DOEE. I have filed personal testimony for DDOT, so we have so many issues on DDOT, but that record has now closed, so mine will have to stand. I think that we need, at this meeting, to divide up this work, to get it done, and to approve it next Monday, and then file it. Commissioner Lynch, you've talked a great deal about DCPS, so why don't you take lead on that? And maybe you could talk to Commissioner Zeldin about working with you to craft testimony that we could take up at the next Monday's regular meeting. My suggestion, again, these are all suggestions. Commissioner Sherman, you've dealt a good deal with DOEE. on the maintenance of the bioretention basins, which are predominantly located at least at the moment in your SMD.
Right.
Would you take up that issue?
Yeah, I'll take up that issue. I indicated previously that I would be preparing testimony, obviously to submit testimony after the hearing. The hearing took place, I believe, Thursday, Friday, the oversight hearing for DOEE. So to submit it after the fact regarding artificial turf issues, the ones that we're seeing at Lafayette, the ones that we know are in play at the Episcopal Center for Children's site. So yes, put me down as yes, and I'll touch on.
Okay, could I just say I'm happy to see whatever testimony you prepare. I mean, whether I or whether other commissioners can get behind it is another thing. And I think on all these issues that we're better working together and voting unanimously or close to unanimously than we are filing individual testimony.
Absolutely.
Encourage you looking for a testimony that we could all agree to.
So I'll prepare it, submit it to you. You give me your feedback, and we'll take it from there.
Great.
On the committee of, there is also the testimony we discussed regarding expressing our views about the handling of the set down for OP's proposed zoning amendments at the zoning commission last October and the way that was handled. So that's something also I have an interest in, as I said at the last meeting.
Well, so let me just see. Let's deal with these three agencies right now, but we're going to have to take up the issue of the zoning commission has set this down for April. The proposed zoning changes for both the community center library site and the Upper Connecticut Avenue corridor more generally for April 29. And assuredly, we are going to have to address what we think about that proposal and what modifications, if any, we would like to see in that proposal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've talked about. I have a huge personal issue, a non-ANC event that I put on March 25th, and I'm hoping that we can put off the discussion of that issue until just after that, maybe March 27th, when we can get OP in, go over the proposal again and under the zoning proposal again and understand the nuts and bolts of it, and start that discussion. Who knows, maybe even finish it the 27th, so that I'm not.
Yeah, we offered the 27th as a date. Most of the commissioners are able to attend. I sent the email to OP this evening, asking them to confirm for the 27th.
Good.
Okay.
So the only other thing that I think under this heading that we have to discuss is, do you, Lisa, want to work with me on DMPED testimony?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just say more generally, we're gonna once we get over this hump, the budget is coming up now. I think the budget. I mean, I'm just reading Washington Business Journal today. Chair Mendelson saying that there could be a $600 to $800 million hole in the municipal budget. Means that it is going to be an ugly, ugly budget session. But we're going to have to stand up and make our views known, particularly, I think, on the issue of money for the community center and library. So I just alert you that issue is coming.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will get that schedule and send it out. And I think what we should do, Peter, at the next meeting, we could start the discussion at our upcoming admin meeting, is which agencies we want to testify for budget hearing. And, you know, just to reiterate again to the commission, these are really critical hearings for not only the commission, but for the community. Performance and budget oversight are very critical for us to be present for. They outweigh any resolution we're going to send up there. So to be able to testify before the council on agencies' performance and oversight and the budget in terms of what we need in our community is the most critical thing I think we can do. So just plan for that each year. You're on the commission, and get a favorite agency and chip in. That's the easiest way to get through it. Okay, anything else, Commissioner Sherman?
Yeah, so again, I'm on board with the agencies that I've already indicated. I'm mindful, Commissioner Nash mentioned today via email that he gave testimony to DDOT, under his own name. No, did I misunderstand? Sorry.
I did.
No, it's not DDOT, it was WMATA. They had a
Oh,
public
Mata, I'm
hearing
sorry.
on
I'm
Tuesday.
sorry. Yeah, okay. So if you don't mind sharing that, that would be great, just for visibility's sake, just so we have your,
And any individual testimony as a commissioner should come to the commission. And we normally post those as well, even if it's your individual testimony. But if you're giving it as a commissioner individually, send it to the entire commission so we could post that as well.
I did in the case of the DDOT.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
All right, well, now I spoke somewhat extemporaneously because I had very little notice about this meeting, but I can easily summarize what I said. It was also recorded. So
Yeah.
I should send around a summary of what I said?
Did you write it, or was it just verbal testimony?
Verbal testimony.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't ask you to do that. That's fine.
It was recorded.
It's okay. We post the written.
Ah.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask you to redo a summary. No. Thank you. And sometimes that's easier. I mean, putting together these testimonies is tough. So sometimes jumping on and just ad-libbing for your 3 minutes, talking from your heart, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Anything else on this topic before we move on?
Do you want to pick up WMATA now, or do you want to do the?
Yeah, this is a good place to put it in.
And let me just say to Martin Sullivan, who's the lawyer for the parking lot issue on the line, just hold tight. I don't think there's any controversy. I don't see much controversy about Commissioner Sherman's proposed resolution on this issue. So.
Yep. Bruce, you want to go on and give an overview?
Yeah, so the immediacy of this is that tomorrow the open comment period closes at 5 p.m. for the WMATA budget and the very detailed potential cuts they would have to undertake if they were to absorb the cuts to their budget that they had originally envisioned when they submitted their budget. Now, we have, as everyone knows, pledges of new financial support from the District of Columbia, from the government of Maryland, and I don't know if Virginia has been confirmed. The last reports I read indicated that they were still studying their support for WMATA. But those contributions would affect, of course, any of the proposed service cuts. Not knowing exactly how that's all going to shake out, and given the deadline tomorrow to submit public comments, I think it is important for us to go ahead and articulate what we currently understand and advocate for the preservation of the M4 bus line, the entire bus line, and then also for the L2 route from Chevy Chase Circle to Duke Ellington Bridge, which I understand at least is the proposed cut to that line that would affect our neighborhood. So I've understood these were the particular proposed eliminations or reductions of a line in service, and therefore the resolution that I've drafted simply looks at the background and says we're advocating to maintain those. So that's what it is. I sent it to everybody to take a look at. If you have any comments, questions, happy to take them.
Yeah. Okay, I have a comment. First, I would add the D31, 32, 33, 34 lines. Those go on Nebraska Avenue to Tenley, and they do, and military, I believe. So they do go through our ANC, especially down in the southeastern part where my single member district is. And those would face cuts as well on the non-revised budget. And number two, I would add, Bruce, to this resolution, calling on the district to come through on its $200 million promise to WMATA of the additional funding. With that $200 million in extra money, WMATA says these service cuts to our buses would not take place. But as we just heard, budget money is tight in the district, and although they're saying they're going to do it, you know, anything we can do to pressure them to do it is a good thing. Now, what I don't know, I mean, this resolution is directed to WMATA. So I don't know, is this the right place to pressure the city to follow through on its commitment?
Well, that's a good question. Just as a point of procedure here, we need to move that this be considered. We're taking comments before we do that. So I would move that this be considered by the commission for adoption.
Second.
Yeah. Okay.
Discussion.
Okay, great. So those comments are well taken. I understand. Okay. It would change the nature of this particular resolution to direct it to multiple parties. Perhaps we can do that. We can discuss how best to do that so that it's straightforward and easily understood. I chose WMATA in this instance because it's the primary agency involved, obviously, and the one that has proposed the reductions.
Right. Now, another option, Bruce, which I was going to assume we were going to do, is this is for WMATA. We tell them what we don't want. And then I was working on with people in my transportation committee, which I'll get to later in this meeting, I hope, a separate resolution that would be directed to the council and the city to follow through on the $200 million that they have promised.
Okay.
And so that's a second way to go that I thought made more sense, but I'm a rookie. I don't know, Lisa, what do you think?
I mean, I don't object that. I think definitely in the past we have sent these to WMATA. So I think this one going to WMATA is the right way to go. I do like the idea of enforcing with the city that we want them to follow through on that commitment to the 200,000. So that should go to the mayor and the council.
Right. 200 million.
Yeah, 200 million. I'm sorry.
And during the
We're
budget,
talking about some real money here.
Yeah, for sure.
and would it be appropriate then to send that during the budget considerations that we're going to have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might actually get rolled up into a series of statements we would make about budget.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you go through our past budget testimony, we have some, you can kind of see how we did WMATA. It's a tricky agency because, you know, they don't answer to us, but we could maybe do a type of global testimony on that.
My sense is that WMATA, they don't want to cut anything. I mean, they have to balance their budget with the money they're given. So we can send all we want to WMATA, but the real decision makers are the people with the money. That's DC, Maryland, Virginia governments. And that's where I think our efforts ought to be. WMATA, they'll do what they can do with the money they have.
That's true. That's true, Commissioner Nash, although WMATA did make the decision to cut the E6 bus line during COVID, that has not been and probably will not be restored.
Yeah.
So the focus there is, I mean, the locus, if you will, of responsibility still remains with WMATA to some extent. Any other comments? Commissioner Zeldin, welcome. We're talking about the WMATA resolution, draft resolution, taking comments on that. Did you have a comment?
No, Bruce, other than the one sort of grammatical-ish comment I sent to you yesterday. I didn't understand one sentence and suggested that you change it. But beyond that, no, I favor this. I do think, as Commissioner Nash has said, to whom it is directed may be of some consequence, but there's no harm, I don't think, in directing it to multiple personages or agencies.
Definitely.
One other thing I would note, and I imagine many of you have also received comments from your constituents. I've received a number of them about WMATA in particular. I flagged it in my newsletter that went out on Saturday, so that prompted a number of folks to write to me to say, that they were looking to the commission to make a statement and support their own individual statements. They were taking the WMATA survey and articulating their concerns. I heard from a number of parents whose kids are on the M4 every day. We know these stories, so I won't go into them, but there are a lot of those folks. We did have any other commissioner comments? There at least is one member of the community who would like to comment. Commissioner Lynch, did you have anything to add to this? No? Okay. Michaela, go ahead. I think, Yank, you're muted.
You're muted, Michaela.
Okay, am I still muted? No, I'm not.
No, you're good.
Bruce, I'm a little disheartened and discouraged to hear that we're willing to throw the E6 under the bus. I don't think we should give up that easily because there wasn't even a public, the public input process wasn't even adhered to by WMATA during COVID. So I would just strongly suggest that we at least include one statement in support of reinstating the E6 before we just walk away from the E6, because it is important to a large segment of the community that lives in Barnaby Woods and in Hawthorne. Thank you.
I didn't mean to indicate that. I'm sorry if I inadvertently suggested that I was giving up on it. I've got a number of constituents at Knollwood that are passionate about the E6, Michaela. So I take your point and certainly can put that in.
Thank you.
And Bruce, maybe we can just append, because I was going to suggest that too. Thank you for Michaela for bringing that up. I think anytime we have an opportunity to highlight what happened with the E6 and request its return, we should. Maybe we can just append in your resolution real easily the former resolutions that we did, because they go back. And that way we don't lose track of them. We reference them, in new resolutions going forward, and, keep that argument up for bringing the E6 back.
Good point. I saw, in fact, in doing this resolution and drafting this, the letter we sent last year that specifically went into detail on the E6. That would be
Right.
a certain, obviously an immediate antecedent to append here. So yeah, take that.
And Bruce, I sent you in my written notes yesterday your URL to a previously passed WMATA budget thing that you can use or not use as you see fit. But I pulled it out for you because it's from 2 commissions ago, predates me.
Okay. Okay, great. Any more comments from commissioners or from the community? Cheryl, your hand's still up, but I take it it's from our previous conversation. Are you good, or did you want to talk to this? Okay, you're fine.
You're muted.
Yeah.
Hi, actually, I'm not muted. I may be misremembering, but I think that at some point you all said that we could have a special meeting about what's actually written in the RFP. Is
Right.
that
We're
correct or not?
Cheryl, right now, we're on the WMATA. We're on our resolution to talk about supporting our M4 bus line, L2 bus line, so forth and so on.
Yeah, let's come back to that later on.
Okay, thank you. On that point, I would also add that the people at the community center take the bus from Fort Totten to the community center. And it's E4 and it's being rerouted, and they will no longer be able to get to work.
Okay. All right. So I think I can kind of recap where we are and then move that we adopt this with the revisions as suggested. So the resolution calls on the ANC to ask WMATA to preserve the M4 bus line and the L2 bus route, as I noted, from Chevy Chase Circle to the Duke Ellington Bridge. And then also to include reference to the D lines that Commissioner Nash mentioned, 31, 32, 34, if I heard those correctly, but I will be sure that I have them noted. Mention the E6 bus that Michaela noted, Commissioner Gore also underscored. Attach previous resolutions or link to those, reference those. In the context and incorporate the change that Commissioner Zeldin had requested, but also to amend the language to reflect the current state of the budget, bring that completely up to date, fact check that, make sure that the background is accurate, And to have some passing reference here even to DC honoring its pledge, even though we'll come back to that in the budget conversation. Is that square with everybody's understanding here? Okay. So I move that we adopt the resolution with the amendments as stated.
I second. Commissioners, all those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0.
Okay.
Passes. Great.
Oh, is Zach on now?
6-0, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Zach's not.
6-0.
Thank you so much, Jim. 6-0. No, he's not on. Thank you. That was my error. Okay, we are like really on time. This is awesome. Commissioner Gosselin, turning it over to you for discussion on CVS parking lot.
You're muted, Peter.
And then after that, let me just say this. After that, I want to go back to Cheryl's comment in the discussion on the RFP meeting, if commissioners don't mind.
So let me say, there's an immediate issue before us, which is whether or not we support an application by the owners of the CVS, the parking lot behind CVS and that block of Connecticut for a special exception to operate a parking lot in an R2 zone. And then there's a more general issue, which is parking for our Upper Connecticut Avenue commercial corridor. There are something like 5 or 6 parking lots that I want to talk about. My suggestion, though Martin Sullivan, who represents the owners of the Chevy Chase, of the CVS parking lot, I'm going to call it the CVS parking lot for purposes of this discussion, is on the line and can talk to us briefly about their thinking about that, what they're looking for, and so forth. I just suggest that we have him talk about the owner's ask here, and then can move over the final decision about this until our March 11th meeting, so we can talk more generally about how we think we ought to be handling parking lots. So if that's agreeable to the commissioners, my suggestion is that Marty will raise his hand. He can just talk briefly about what is being sought in this application for a special exception. Are you on? I saw you come in earlier. I just don't know whatever happened.
I am here, and I'm sorry, I can never find the hand raise function.
It's under
on this.
reactions.
Under reaction.
Okay.
Barry did it a drop there. So why don't you just tell us what you're looking for?
Yes, found it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Marty, if you
Commissioner.
can keep your hands raised, we can see you on the front of the screen.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Keep it raised, and that way you come to the front of our view. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Gosselin, and thanks for having me. It was short notice, so Mr. Singh, who's the owner of Chevy Chase Wine, is not with us. He couldn't make it, I guess, because I invited him when I found out about it, because he maintains the parking lot for the owners of the property. So this is actually, it's 4 lots. It's made up of 4 lots behind the CVS. It's a separate property. Because it's in the residential zone, special exception is required for parking that's accessory to a commercial use that's either contiguous or across an alley. And this is contiguous. And it was first approved in 1953, always with a term limit. And so the owner has been back, we think, more than at least 10 times to the BZA. The last time was 2014. So that expires this spring. And so we're back for a renewal of that. And I've talked to Commissioner Gosselin earlier. We have asked for no time limit because we thought maybe after 70 years, if the community was okay with it, we could do that. But we certainly defer to the ANC on that. We understand the comfort that community may get from a time limit. So I have I mean, I was just going to share, I could share my street view in Google Earth of the parking lot.
Okay.
If any, for a frame of reference, if you'd like.
I just made you co-host.
Thank you.
Are you doing that? Or
I've
I'm
already
sorry.
done-
Already done it? Okay, so go ahead, share.
Okay.
Marty, can I ask while you're bringing this up, does this include the parking lot behind Child's Play?
That doesn't sound familiar, but let me pull it up and I think we'll be able to see. Let me see. Okay, so here's the Google Maps first. So here's the parking lot here. This is the Google Earth of the parking lot. Here's CVS, here's Chevy Chase, Wine. Street view, it's just this. Let me see if I can, hold on 1 second. Let me put this on here. These are the 4 lots here. So it's these 4 lots. The CVS properties go back here. This lot goes a little bit through the driveway.
Okay, so just so the commissioners recognize this, it does not include the Child's Play extension, which is the triangle, the sort of triangular lot.
Right, it's not this, right? It's just this.
Okay, well, so we'd like to hear from Mr. Singh, and we understand that this has been a parking lot for 70 years, and you folks keep coming back. The last extension was for 10 years from 2024.
Right, these are the conditions from the last order in 2014. Hopefully substantially complied with. I know they repaved in the middle of these two. I think repaved about halfway through the, from it's 2017 or 2018, I think.
Okay, commissioners, my suggestion is that we take this part, and I will be sure you all, if I haven't already, I'll be sure you all have the document that Marty has sent to us that has all of these, all of this information. Let me just, here's the discussion I think we want to have. It's telling that they're asking for an indefinite extension. There's only one other lot on our Upper Connecticut Avenue corridor with such a provision, and that's the Safeway lot. I'm relying for what I'm about to say heavily on work done by former Chair Randy Speck and by former Commissioner Jerry Mallett. We spent a lot of time at this commission, and we spent a lot of time talking to DDOT about trying to encourage people to do other things than driving. But driving is still very important to this community, and the older community where many people live a real distance from the commercial corridor. Jerry Mallett has said repeatedly that there is adequate parking in the commercial corridor. The problem is that a lot of it is heavily restricted. So, for example, the PNC lot PNC only allows, and the way the original our last special support for a special exception was worded, they're only allowed to use it for bank customers. Ditto the Wells Fargo law. So if there may be adequate parking, but a lot of it is fenced off from general use. In addition, many of the lot owners do not have current special exceptions. The PNC lot looks to be something like 5 years out of date. The lot behind Blue 44 and the fishery is expired. I couldn't find where we are with the Wells Fargo lot. So that gives us some leverage. And I think one of the things I'm going to be arguing for when we take up the whether we support the special exception for the CVS lot is that we time limit it, and time limit it to less than 10 years, certainly less than indefinitely and less than 10 years. Because while the CVS lot clearly is used by many people, notwithstanding the posting on it, these other lots, really the bank lot and the PNC lot and the Wells Fargo lot, are not used, not available for the general public. And I think we want to ask ourselves whether we should make them available or ask that they be made available as part of these owners going for special exceptions. So that's I don't know if we want to discuss it further, but I think that's an issue that's before us, and that's really important, particularly as we move down the path towards bike lanes on Connecticut Avenue and bike lanes that extended beyond Legation or Livingston Street all the way up. And if that happens, lose parking along the avenue itself. We want to be sure that there's adequate parking on these lots behind. I'm happy to answer questions. I think Jerry is on the line. I didn't see whether Randy came on. Marty, can you take down this? Commissioners, I will send you the material that Marty sent us if I haven't already.
I don't have too much questions on this, Peter, until I see the BZA application. I mean, to me, it's just a little premature for me to chime in.
Jim, you got your hand up?
Yeah. Peter, did I hear you say that you want there to be a time restriction on the CVS lot, not because you're so worried about that one, but just for consistency's sake, because you want time restrictions on the other lots where you want, because people use that are mostly, I mean, it's used a lot.
I think, frankly, I guess what I'm proposing is that we try to get time restrictions on all the lots to give us some leverage in looking to be sure that these lots are available to all. Now, look, the CVS lot is an example of one that's posted for use by only certain people. In fact, it's not enforced. And if you look at the signs of the CVS lot, it's way out of current. I mean, I think it still has arugula listed. It is, I mean, if we approve it with those with use restrictions on it, and we improve it indefinitely, we've got problems in terms of making parking broadly available to people. Okay. Bruce?
Yeah, just quickly, this was, Commissioner Gosselin, as you've indicated, kind of preliminary look at this, that we're going to come back to this. And then, of course, neighbors would be notified and we would have assurance of neighbor notification and concurrence and so forth and so on, correct?
Marty, just let me ask, is there I assume because it's a special exception that there's a notification requirement. Have you fulfilled that with regard to abutting neighbors?
Yes, every property owner within 200 feet of any portion of the property should have been notified.
Well, I'll track that back just to be sure they were notified. There are certainly people who back on the alley at the back of that lot, who live on 39th Street, who will have to have heard, or we're going to have a problem with the notification. Jerry, right. Are you on the line, or let's see, are there other commissioners? If Jerry is on the line, or Randy, Corinthia, you have your hand up.
Yes. So I have a couple questions. One, what happens if the lot isn't renewed? So is it zoned for housing and that's what the special exemption is for? So just curious as what happens if it's not renewed for the 10 years? Are people not able to park? Is it like blocked off? Just curious about that. And then just for my educational purposes, what is if it's what's the hesitation in zoning it indefinitely, similar to like the Safeway? I don't think I really understood what was the issue with not wanting to do that. So if you could answer both of my questions, that'd be great.
I think I think the reality is that this commission would never not approve some exception for that lot because it would just decimate the businesses that depend on it. What I'm suggesting, Corinthia, is that we limit the time to allow us to have some leverage in trying to make sure that that lot and all lots serving the commercial corridor are open to all people so that we can spread the parking burden. We can meet the parking burden by spreading it across all lots along the corridor. Is that?
Yeah, and then what's the regular zone for it? I know you said there's an exemption.
R2, so it's a residential zone. It's I think it's single family or semi-detached housing. I mean, all you need to do is go down like Morrison Street, and you'll see.
I understand. I just don't know what R2 is, and
Yeah,
I didn't look at it. Thank you.
Okay.
Peter?
Go ahead. Jerry, it's your floor.
Okay. Hi, everybody. What Peter was referencing was in, I believe it was 2019, when I was a commissioner, we had a parking task force and came out with a pretty extensive report and counted spaces throughout the day and did a lot of other things. And Peter's right. There are a lot of the properties that the exceptions have expired. They don't exist anymore. They're just going along with what it was in the past. Several of those lots used to have the one behind Blue 44, the one behind Citibank, the one at PNC. They used to have either gates or attendants that checked people that they were actually using the businesses there. Those are all gone now. But one thing that we were looking at when those exceptions would expire was that, yes, those lots are important for the businesses that are there, but since they're very underutilized, I'm not talking about the CVS one, that's the most utilized one, perhaps, but the others are the Wells Fargo, the PNC, the one behind Citibank. Those are low occupancy rates, let's just say. And even the one at Wells Fargo, they rent out some of their spaces to Long and Foster, which is across the street, and to a couple of other places, which I don't know if that was allowed in their exception, but they're doing it. So what we were hoping for was when those exceptions came up for renewal, that there was some acknowledgement that when those businesses, especially when those businesses were not in operation, like Wells Fargo on the weekend, that people could use the lots. PNC, people could use the lots, and that would increase the parking supply so that, as Peter mentioned, if bike lanes become a reality, then certain spaces will be lost, that there will still be spaces for the businesses to have customers come in and continue to thrive. And that was one of the main things that we were looking at that time. So that's all I have to say at this point.
So look, if commissioners have other questions or comments, that's fine. I don't think we need to. We're going to take this. I hope we're going to take this, the specifics of the CVS request up on next Monday. So I'm prepared to move on unless others have.
Was there
Liz, I guess Liz, Liz, do you have your hand up?
There we go. Sorry about that. I do have my hand up. I guess I would just like to remind everybody and point out that the RFP for the Civic Center site specifically downplays parking. So when you're thinking about this parking issue and what's available to the community, I'd like to suggest that you think about the fact that even if we never got a single bike lane here, we will lose parking behind the community center because there won't be any. So I think about the people in wheelchairs, the people who are disabled, the people who have mobility issues, and that they need to be in close proximity to the places that they're going. It's not as if parking 3 blocks away will work for them. So please keep that in mind. You have elderly people in this community, you have disabled people everywhere. It's not just the able-bodied bike riders and walkers who are using our community's corridor, commercial corridor. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, I'm prepared.
Commissioner Zeldin?
Just have one question, Peter. Do you know whether in the sort of the MOU around this parking lot, it was intended that the parking lot be used for people who shop at these stores versus, I noticed there are a lot of cars that seem to be parked there too that relate to people who work in the businesses. There's always the crab truck there and other things. So just as you sort through that, that parking lot is often, completely filled. And I'm wondering if we have any indication about how many spots are being taken up by non-resident users of it versus employees or owners of those shops, and whether there's anything in it that makes provision, making it acceptable or not acceptable.
Well, one thing I think is true, Michael, is that the crab truck is on the portion of the property that, if I remember the Google Earth picture, that is not the lot that this particular immediate application is for. I do know that
No, sometimes, Peter, it's in the very back far right corner.
Yeah. You're right. I do know that for the portion of the lot behind Child's Play, which is not, I do know that for the parking lot behind Child's Play, which is separate from the CVS parking lot, that employees use that. And I know that because they've just repaved the alley that cuts through there. And I was trying, the owner of Child's Play, the manager of Child's Play, was trying to figure out where her employees were going to go. And I tried to negotiate a deal with PNC, and they wouldn't help us. So, Marty, just you must know the paperwork on this. Is this current ask, or was the soon to expire exemption allow or require the owner to restrict use to those particular customers of those particular businesses?
It's not a condition of the zoning order. No, I know the sign is the there's five stores that are on the sign, and it says no employee parking. But none of that was a specific condition, and I don't recall, my memory from 10 years ago, I don't recall that was discussed with the community or with the ANC in that case.
Let's take this up next Monday. And listen, thank you for your patience, and I know that it was short notice to tell you that we switched from, we were going to discuss this issue generally today. So thanks for coming.
No worries. Thank you.
Commissioners, we can move on to announcements, but I did want to go back to the comment that Cheryl Barnes made regarding the RFP meeting. I believe Commissioner Lynch had sent an email to DMPED Peter, do you want to give the community an update on where all that is?
On the request to DMPED to come meet with us about the RFP.
Mhm.
I emailed DMPED, must be about a month ago now, to ask for a meeting to come address us about the RFP. Giles Stucker called at one point and was concerned that he would have to show up at a meeting and wouldn't be able to answer questions. I said that the ANC could probably work that out and maybe just email all the commissioners again, and we could come to an agreement about what questions could be asked and not asked. And even if they couldn't be answered, at least the community would have an opportunity to question why there are certain things in the RFP, and we haven't heard back.
Was there a later email? I thought you sent him something 2 weeks ago asking for a meeting with just the ANC members, not before the community, but just before the ANC members.
No, I don't think I ever did that, but I did send 2 reminder emails that said, where are we at? Could we meet? Is there going to be a time where DMPED can come before the ANC and talk about the RFP? So there must have been at least 3 emails out to them to say, hey, can you come
Yeah,
talk
they're
to
not
us?
going to do
And
that. So I thought that's what he said, that he wasn't, that they weren't going to, or maybe you said that they weren't going to be able to do that because of the stage of the legality with the RFP. And I thought I thought the email said that he offered to meet individually with the ANC. I thought maybe I read it wrong.
well, maybe I don't remember that. So that's where we're at.
Commissioners, let me go to Commissioner Sherman.
Yeah, just a question on protocol and policy with regard to speaking with potential bidders on the RFP. Do we have guidance on that?
No specific guidance. I think they are allowed to do that. But we have to be careful in doing so. And I think that would be a good something that we need to, and I said I would clarify that with DMPED. I like to get something in writing on that, because we're going to be contacted by the bidders, and I know because they are required to do outreach. So each developer is that's gonna look different for each developer. Whether they contact, I imagine, Peter Lynch is going to get a lot of contacts because he's a single member district commissioner. They'll probably reach out, to chair, vice chair. They will probably have community meetings, ANC meetings. So I think it's just going to run the gamut in terms of what that outreach looks like. But we can get some clarification on that. Commissioner Gosselin.
Bruce, pending clarification, the position I've taken, I've gotten a call from somebody who represents Urban Atlantic. These are the developers who are doing the senior affordable housing extension net listener, who want to talk. And I've said that I'm happy to talk, but I will disclose any conversations that I have. I won't talk, in camera with them. Now, I mean, I'm happy to change that based on whatever guidance we get from OANC or DMPED, but that's sort of my going in position on this.
I would just, for my own purposes, want to get guidance from either OANC or from OAG or someone, because we are elected government officials. There is an official procurement going on. And while we are representatives of the community, can provide insights into community views and so forth individually or as a commission, we are nonetheless government employees or government officials, not employees. So I'm just mindful of what the P's and Q's
are. It's probably out there, Bruce. I don't know if you've had a chance to look in the I'm sure there's guidance probably already out there from OAG. I don't know if you've looked at that yet.
Yeah, I might ping OANC tomorrow just for what they know about it, that's their job, to provide us with technical advice and guidance, right?
Yep,
So
that's great. Yeah. Commissioner Selden.
So I just wanted to add, Bruce, to this and to what Peter Goslin said, is I too was reached out to by Vicki Davis at Urban Atlantic. And I told her that I would not be meeting with bidders until the submissions have been submitted, because I didn't feel that that was the appropriate thing to do based on my government contracts experience. She writes back saying totally fine, but just as a point of information, the RFP asks bidders to reach out and get as much feedback as possible. So this may be unique in the ordinary course of a procurement, if that's what the RFP. So I think, Bruce, if you can get that understanding with respect to this specific RFP, that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
So let me just do one very quick, won't take very long, 10, 15-second brainstorm here. We're talking about conveying what our community has had in mind, and we're using DMPED as a filter, when in fact the bidders, prospective bidders, are reaching out directly with no filter. So that suggests an opportunity for us to convey the views of the community. We can do it individually, we can do it collectively, whatever is permissible, whatever is appropriate. I'm just flagging it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it. And that's why I was saying earlier with the RFP process and the amendment resolution, there's a ton of opportunity to do that.
Right.
And I don't think there's a whole lot of limitations on that. And that's what we all should be doing. They're going to ask us that. That's why they're reaching out. And that by them reaching out just kind of proves they reached out because they read that RFP and they read what the ANC had said. That's exactly why they reached out.
Yeah, no, that's good. They're one thing,
Yeah.
DMPED is another, but I hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to belabor this, but I do want to wrap it up in terms of Bruce. So if you will reach out to OANC and get that guidance for all of us, that would be great.
Okay.
But I do want to solidify and finalize the point with DMPED in meeting with community versus ANC. How does the ANC want to handle that? Do you guys want a sidebar with DMPED so they can kind of explain what they can and cannot talk to about? Do you want to forego that? I don't think it's wise to do a community meeting because they can't really answer too much in terms of the RFP. And they will be coming here basically saying no comment. So would you guys want to have a sidebar with them and see what can be discussed with us, or are you comfortable with the RFP process? What do you want to represent that they can actually answer?
Can't say I'm comfortable with the RFP process, but I don't see it sounds like a pretty fruitless conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would agree because they're not going to opine while this is out there. They're just not going to, they can't legally do that. It's going to be difficult for them to share a lot of information.
Yeah, I think we want to just get clarification about what we as individual commissioners or a group of commissioners, however it is that people want to interact with prospective bidders, what our do's and don'ts are. And I think that would be instructive.
Okay.
I mean, it may be that the commissioners who represent the commercial district want to meet with them separately, or the people who are, representing the most senior citizens meet with that, whatever. People can cluster or meet individually or not meet at all until the RFPs are submitted. We just need to know what the rules of the road are.
Okay. Cheryl?
Thank you. In the interest of being really transparent with the community, it seems like the ANC 34G would really want this to be a public meeting rather than a behind closed doors meeting, which hasn't really gone all that well in the past. And wouldn't it really behoove the ANC 34G to have a dialogue with the community about what the RFP actually says before any kind of public meeting with the city?
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to have a meeting with the city. That's what we were discussing. We're not going to have a public meeting with the city because the city has stated that they cannot go into hardly any detail on the RFP while it's out there, just legality. So what we are saying is that in lieu of that, we're going to clarify the process in terms of outreach with development teams to make sure that we're operating in the best position for that. But the city has already said that they're, you know, if we have a meeting with them, they're going to be sitting there saying I can't answer, and that's just not going to be good for anybody. So the ANC
And
is
how would it benefit the community for you to have behind closed doors conversations with them?
we're not having a conversation with them. That's what we said. We're not having a
What
conversation.
you just said.
We're not having a conversation. Closed doors, open doors. We're not having.
But you're taking phone calls from developers.
We're going to clarify what we can and what we cannot do with developers, and that's what we're going to do. And we'll let the community know about that, and we'll discuss some kind of way of how to make that transparent to the community. Okay. So, commissioners, with that, let's move into community announcements. I know, Jim, you had an announcement.
Yeah. Okay. We had a pre-formation meeting of the developing ANC Transportation Committee on Saturday. Including myself, there were 13 people there. And we talked about the charter. I am working on the charter now. And when I finish it with some input from the people who showed up there, I will put that into a resolution and send it to all of you for your comments or approval. I'm hoping to have that done 1 week from today. We'll see. One point is we had people there from all 7 single-member districts except for 2, and that's 06 and 07. And that is yours, Peter, and also Zach's. Ideally, we would like to have someone from those 2 districts also. So if you know of anyone, Peter and Zach, you're not on here, but I'll try to contact you. Or maybe you'd like to come yourself. You know, that we'd love to have more commissioners on here. But we had a good meeting. There seemed to be general consensus on what we want to do. A lot of talk about walkability and public transportation and becoming more proactive and coordinating our efforts so that we're not playing catch up like we're doing, you know, right now with this WMATA resolution. Okay, so, you know, that's it for now.
And let me just add to that, Jim, and to the commission, we're going to have to follow the bylaws regarding this committee. So if we want it as a standing committee versus a permanent, you know, committee, actually a special committee versus a standing committee, we need to appoint Jim as the chair of the committee. And since he's moving forward on it, I would recommend that we do that at our next March 11th meeting so that it's official.
Okay, Lisa, you're saying to make it a standing committee?
We're going to have to do one because there's 2 committees. There's only 2 types of committees in the commission: ad hoc and standing.
Okay.
So I think you need to think about that as chair, which one you want it. Come to us with the recommendation.
Okay.
And then we will appoint that officially at the March 11th meeting. Because the committee needs to be operating within the bylaws.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Did you say, you said something else about needing a chair for this committee?
Yeah.
Does that have to be done right away or something?
Absolutely. The chair is supposed to be appointed before you form the committee.
Okay.
Don't we get to vote on the members?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I have a list of people who showed up for the first meeting, but it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. Because I mean, we're not an official committee yet, but we did have a meeting.
Well, that's fine, but now that y'all are moving, we have to get it official. So, yeah, and Peter's right. The ANC appoints the committee in entirety from the chair on down. So once we appoint you, then at the next meeting, we could appoint committee members.
Okay.
But just speaking about chicken and egg, if we are looking at establishing a committee by naming the chair prior to understanding what the charter is, are we concerned about that? I would be interested in understanding what the charter is and proceeding in terms of naming the chair kind of concurrently, so that we have clearly in mind what the committee is going to be doing.
He's got a proposed charter.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well then we want to see that right at the time, or when we're looking at naming somebody to be him to be the chair.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, I want to say, Jim, I heard from some folks who attended the meeting and they found it productive, informative, well attended, so forth and so on. But I know all of us, myself included, are going to have about the committee, about the charter, and about the focus of it.
Yeah.
I've got a community announcement if you want to.
Let me go to Elizabeth Nagy.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi. Commissioner Nash mentioned that you don't have anyone from SMD 07, and I guess I'd like to offer myself up. I would love to be part of this committee, and I am in SMD 07, so I hope you'll consider that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Sherman.
Yeah, so I have a community Zoom call tomorrow, which I've flagged already for the commissioners, and have announced in my newsletter on Lafayette to hear from my constituents. Lafayette, as many of you know, of course, Lafayette, obviously Commissioner Lynch has taken the lead on this with respect to the overall DCPS budget problems. Lafayette obviously has its own budget problems, facing a 22-24% budget reduction given the increase in staff salaries. Dr. Brocard encouraged her families at Lafayette to reach out to their council members and to their ANC members, which they've done. Many of them have reached out to me. So to give my constituents an opportunity to voice their concerns, brainstorm ideas about what they might be able to do in support of Lafayette specifically, I'm hosting a Zoom call tomorrow night from 7 to 8:15. I think I've already given you guys the link. You're welcome to join. I'll be publicizing it further. And Will Perkins from CM Louis George's office is going to join. So just to let everybody know.
Okay. Commissioner Gosselin, can you volunteer to do the agenda for the 11th tonight?
Oh, come on.
You told me to ask you, and I needed help. I need help.
I so want to end this day.
Can you just get it going? Just come on. I got to do all the posting.
Will you do this? I literally this project I'm doing, this non-ANC thing, is just eating me up. So can you?
Yeah, could I speak to the concierge, please?
Elizabeth, can you mute?
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
If only we had a concierge.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need a concierge.
We need one, right? If you can't do it, just say you can't do it so I can move on.
Can't do it. Sorry.
Okay.
But speaking of those sort of things, do we have an agreement among commissioners for an admin meeting the 14th?
Yeah, that's the date.
Okay.
That's the majority that folks said they can make it.
Okay. I just alert you. I thought I saw from Chris Dyer that DPR and Lafayette were going to do it
on the 13th.
On the which day?
I thought theirs was on the 13th.
Oh, good. All right. Good. I was afraid
I need to double check that, because that's a huge issue, because it has to do with
I understand. Hold on. I'm going to scroll back down.
Commissioner Zeldin, do you know? Because that's the DPR notice about the meeting at Lafayette on the field.
I thought it was on the 13th, but I don't know.
I think it is. Yeah.
Here we go.
What time is the admin meeting on the 14th?
And virtual.
6 p.m.?
Okay, and you're right, Bruce and Michael, I'm looking at the Chris Dyer thing. Wednesday, the 13th, 6 to 7:30.
Right.
Okay, folks, time is 8:02. We are 2 minutes over. Great meeting. Ran right on time, down to the minute. Great meeting you all. Thank you. I'll try to get the agenda out as soon as possible
Great.
for the 11th. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.